Hi, chose a different location today because it's about the story and the thoughts that I'd like to talk about. It may run into more than one take, so it may run over into other films. I've been thinking about the past and Osensi and the students that he created, we'll say, those that were either sent to him by their parents to make them into better people, stronger people, or those who chose to go and train with him. It's strange, when I think back, I was just in a hurry to enjoy the Aikido as I did, and I was in a hurry to perfect it. That's never happened, well, not yet, but we still hope, and I'm sure a lot of you out there know what I mean. The Doshu, the one that's passed, his son that ran the Hombu, and it's called the Aikikai. This son sent Japanese teachers throughout the world, and in the UK originally it was a judo and a boxing club, as I've mentioned, and Kenshiro Abe, who is a very famous name, if you don't know of it, look him up. He was a very famous judo master. He met Osensi, was very impressed with him. And when he came to the hut in London to teach as was then the judo people, he showed them some Aikido, but he said that it wasn't his art, and his art was judo, but he was very impressed, and he would like the people to develop Aikido and see a bit more of it. So he said he would send an Aikidoka over, a very high ranked one called Nakazono. And Nakazono came over, impressed the people, and slowly they started to switch from judo to Aikido at the hut in Hillingdon near Heathrow Airport, for those who don't know it. This was the very first start of Aikido in the UK. Then Noro Sensei, who was located in Paris, he would come and teach, and he was really the main teacher then between the Hombu, him and the UK link. Year after year they would send different teachers to do the summer camp, a place called Grange Farm. I don't know where it is, but I remember stories being told of how hard it was, and within a day or two their knees would be bleeding through their gis, but they had to still keep training. The training was very severe and very demanding. In the early days the Japanese used to do so much on their knees. It was their tradition. You know, their floors had tatami on it, not carpet like ours or tiles. You would go into a normal, usually a small wooden building of one story, and it would have a straw tatami, and they would take the shoes off outside underneath a porch, and this is how their lives were, mainly on their knees. So being very difficult for Westerners to go from standing to kneeling, and then also having to do techniques, being shouted at, demanded about working harder, training harder. I'm glad we don't have those days back here now, but this is what I think made those unique masters. They've all passed now. The only one that I know of who's still from the next generation is Yamada Sensei in New York. there may be others out there, but he's the only one I know of who's, we'll say, the last of what I call the hard crew. He's not hard himself, he's a very nice, friendly master, but he has a keen eye, and I've noticed that when he was testing a seminar in Russia, he didn't pass hardly anybody because he said the standard wasn't good enough. So it's okay being a nice person, but you do have to be true to yourself. Today the Aikidoka and teachers alike, I think, do not know what hard training is. My master, Saito Sensei, he would say, today we will do hard training. At the end of it, I would say to my friends, that wasn't hard at all. What did Sensei mean? They said, when Sensei says hard training nowadays, he means using your mind, thinking really hard about not only the techniques, but Aikido in general. So he changed what we thought of physical to mental being hard. And from then, all those years gone by in the UK, Chiba Sensei came. He was a very, very hard school, really hard school. He would slap people around the heads, he would demand so much of people and try to break them down. And there's people I know today who are very high ranked themselves, 5th, 6th dans, possibly 7th, who they stuck by him and they trained and trained, and they have very good Aikido in their own right. I remember Saito Sensei, we were walking, I can't remember where, but we were walking somewhere. And this is when, many years on, Chiba Sensei was back in San Diego, and he'd been there for many years. And when Saito Sensei used to go to America and tour the different areas, at one time he said that Chiba Sensei met him and said he must carry his bags for him because he was higher than him in status. Sensei said, Chiba, you've proved that you're strong. You've proved that your Aikido is unquestionable, and I know you can do everything that you wish to do, but it's now time that you stopped this hard training and you should find the softer side. He paused and looked at me and he said, he didn't listen, but he's still a very good master. So you see, there was a master there who was a 9th Dan talking about, I don't know if he was 7th or 8th Dan then, Sensei Chiba. But they talk about each other as friends, acquaintances that they knew on the mat, they grew up with. And the friendship is no different than a friend I had on the mat all those years ago and thought that I would become one day somebody. And I don't know yet if I have or not. All I know is I enjoy my Aikido still. Those days I always was hoping the next lesson would give me the answers to Aikido. Never did, but I always hoped and never stopped hoping. Some classes were great, some were painful, some hurt, some did make my knees bleed. These things we've learnt to stop teaching our students, and we've gone into protecting them more. The word mollycoddle, put them in cotton wool, make sure no harm comes to them. Part of this is the law nowadays that we mustn't injure people. We have a duty of care. So Aikido has changed dramatically. Sensei said that his finest student ever was Kochi Toei. He broke away from the Hombu Dojo and formed his own, I can't pronounce the Japanese name of his school, so I'll just say Ki Society. It's something like Shinshin no Toitse, and I have no idea what it means. And I apologise if I've said that wrong. Ki Society. And he talked about Ki, and he wanted to teach the elements of Ki. Now, what is Ki? I've tried to talk about it in another film. I remember the first time I met Saito Sensei. You sit there on the tatami as a normal student. You're not thinking about rank, you're just thinking about the excitement you've got waiting for the sensei to arrive and bow, and you're nervous, excited, all the things like a young child would be. An adult, yes. I brought up my own children. I think one daughter was 10 years old by the first time I met Saito Sensei, running a multi-million-pound business. So I wasn't a child, but you may know what I mean. You're waiting for the great sensei to come onto the mat. You're nervous. It's a place that you go inside and only you know the experience. Sensei came on. He smiled and said how pleased he was having such a big seminar. 63 people. Wasn't big at all to today's standards, with masters coming. He said, and he showed his hands, he said, I want to talk about Kokyu. He said, and if you have good Kokyu, you will have good Ki. So there's Kochi Toei showing Ki exercises, and they're mainly shown through the body and how it can defy strength, really. But it's all done internally with your mind. You can't show something externally that people can't understand. There's one called the unbendable arm. You may know it. You try and keep your arm straight when somebody's trying to bend it with their two hands pulling down at the elbow. With strength it bends if they're strong enough. Putting in Ki and thinking out through your fingertips the energy as if a hose is squirting water, but the water becomes bigger than that in your mind, it becomes power. This is how you develop your mind to develop a greater strength. And we could call this Ki. Just jumping a moment, Chiba had a student called Kanetsuka, and Kanetsuka was then became the sensei of the UK for the Hombu Dojo, called the BAF, British Aikido Federation. It's very sad, he passed away a short time ago, and I used to go and have lunches with him in London. We used to meet up at the Oriental Market and go down below where the food halls were, and I would take Jane with me, and she found him a very strange and humorous but pleasant man. His Aikido was so different to Chiba Sensei's, so different. So I invited him once. This is before we used to go and have meetings and lunch together and talk. And we used to just meet up as friends. Of course, we'd talk about Aikido, but this was more of a friendship. But I remember inviting him to Cambridge to teach a seminar. As his ukes that he brought with him, they were all falling down like too easy. It was just so easy. His Aikido was just throwing them with the greatest of ease. Nothing at all like Chiba Sensei's demanding Aikido, where he would cut them down with this force of a real samurai. Kanetsuka used to shake his hand and show how limp it was and how little effort you needed to put into it. I know that he was using ki. The outside world cannot see what's going on in the inside. The inside mind is connected to all those people that come to grab, attack. It's like an invisible string that goes from mind to mind. And internally you're pulling all your own strings at the right time, finding their balance, leading their mind. It's a very complicated system that I'd like to talk about more one day. He called me up. He hadn't used me before, even though I invited him. And I invited him because he presented me with my Shodan certificate that Saito Sensei awarded me when I was in New Zealand in 1983. So it must have been either 1984 or later 83 that I went to a seminar in Oxford and he presented me with the Shodan certificate from the Aikikai. And then I thought I should invite him to come to teach. Anyway, he calls me up, and I'd been used to Saito Sensei. So I really attacked him, and I really grabbed him. And it was like a 4x4 vehicle. He changed from the beautiful floppy relaxation to whack. Now, how did he instantly know that he'd got something different on the end of him? But he did. The sign of not only a master, but it showed me that this man had been trained well, and he'd been trained by Chiba Sensei. And it come back in a flash. He executed the technique on me, no problem. He then went on and had a small speech to all his people and said, "This man is the only person in this dojo who's really attacking me." But I had to think to myself, yes, but I'm the only one who you actually showed your true Aikido to as well. So I challenged him without me knowing. He rose to the occasion instantly, executed the technique. But how many people can do that? Very few nowadays. Nowadays, if they've been taught what I call limp, beautiful, soft Aikido, where can they go internally and dig for what I consider the Iwama style of basic, strong Kihon? It's not brutal, but there's a depth that most cannot find because they never experienced it. I've been leaving this particular shot. In the background you will see a yellow mug, a glass, and a champagne flute glass. These will be the subject of how I saw Coach Itoe's expression with one of his books called Ki in Daily Life. So I've tried to explain what ki is on the mat. And the next time I will try to explain what ki in daily life is in my own opinion. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe to my channel and make any comments, and this way we'll have a good future of understanding each other, not just you understanding my mind, but me understanding what you would like to know more of, or your own points of view. Thank you for your time.